This video is sponsored by Only Crits. I don't know if you're aware of this, but things have been a little turbulent over the past couple of months in a sort of geopolitical sense. If you live where I live, in the good old US of A, you might have noticed things have not been going super great this year. Last year was pretty bad too, actually. But that's why I'm so happy that I have a hobby like D&D, a social game that gives me the opportunity to connect with my friends once a month, or maybe even once a week if I'm lucky. These days, when life has got you down, it's so important to be able to get together with friends and share in community with them. D&D is also a creative hobby. It encourages you to tackle problems in inventive ways, to think about what makes a satisfying story, to try to imagine your character as a complex person, to encourage empathy. I think everybody should play tabletop role-playing games. I think it would be a really wonderful and enriching experience for them. And so anytime I get comments from people who say that they're getting into a new game or getting into the hobby overall, and they say it's in any way because of my videos, I am so thrilled that I was even remotely able to encourage people to finally seek out that experience and participate in my favorite hobby. But if you're getting into D&D for the first time, it might be kind of daunting, especially with how expensive the hobby seems to be. After all, apparently you need these 3 books just to play the game, and each of those books is like $50, and you might also feel like you need dice, and maps, and miniatures. And of course, your favorite YouTuber keeps talking about his favorite products or online services that he uses for his games, and you feel like maybe you need those as well. And honestly, it can be tough justifying spending that much money on a hobby, especially a new hobby. And these days, when the economy is not treating people very well, it's even harder. Because for some reason, an economy that had already been struggling for the past several years started doing a lot worse around approximately January 2025 for some reason, and weirdly this year it's gotten even worse. That's weird. 1 million people lost their jobs last year. I wonder what happened at the end of 2024 that might have made the economy get a lot worse very quickly in 2025 and 2026. I'm sure it's not important. Certainly, nobody could have predicted this and knew it would happen and tried to warn other people to try to stop it from happening. But the good news is, if you don't currently have the funds to spend money on a hobby like D&D, that's okay. You can still play D&D without spending a dime. And if you do have just a little bit of spending money and you want to put it towards one of these categories we're going to talk about today, there are ways you can spend your money a little more carefully, or just a little bit will go a long way. Because if we're honest, there's no limit to how much money you can spend on this hobby, but there is absolutely a floor, and it's $0. And if you want to add just a little bit onto that, in strategic ways, you can elevate your game extremely quickly for not a lot of money. So that's what we're talking about today. How can you play D&D for free, and if you want to spend a little bit of that money, where can that money make the biggest difference? If you like this video and you want to help support this channel, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. When you ring the bell, you get notified about a new video as soon as it comes out, and the earlier you watch a video, the more that video gets shared with other people early in its lifespan, and that really helps the video find more people, and it helps the channel a lot, which is a huge help to me. I really appreciate it. Now, on with the show. So the first and the most obvious thing we have to talk about are the books. We always talk about how you need these 3 books to run the game. These are the core rule books required to play D&D. The Player's Handbook, the Monster Manual, and the Dungeon Master's Guide. So it stands to reason, if you're going to play this game, you need to drop $150 on these books before you do anything else. But that's not true. In fact, if you're getting into this hobby for the first time, I would really encourage you not to spend $150 if you're not certain you're going to like this game. But how can you get access to the rules without spending money?
Ahoy! I know how ye can do it.
Who are you?
The name's Salty Jack, and if you want to get your hands on the D&D rulebooks without spending any coin, I've got just the solution.
Well, actually, I was just going to recommend that you just read the rules online for free. The majority of the rules for D&D are all online. They were uploaded to the Creative Commons, so they're going to stay up there forever, completely for free. You can get all of the classes from the core rulebook with 1 subclass for each class, but that's enough to get you started. And as a game master, you've got a huge selection of monsters. You're only missing the ones that are protected intellectual property, things like beholders or mind flayers. But also, you've got everything in D&D that could be remotely connected to mythology. So you've got goblins and demons and dragons and undead and all sorts of little oozes. Even the oozes made it in, despite not really having an origin in mythology or folklore. Like, you have more than enough to run so many campaigns just with the free rules. The downside is you don't get quite everything. You don't get all the official art, and that is kind of a shame, but you can Google the art. Even if you don't have a D&D Beyond account, you can still see the pictures and pull them off the website and still access them that way. So you have more than enough to run your game. But there is another way you could probably track down the official core rulebooks and get everything in the books.
That's right. You take to the high seas.
Well, actually, I was going to say, go to your local library. It's actually possible they might have some books in stock, and if they don't, I don't know, ask them about it. They might be able to recommend another library that has them. Maybe they're even willing to track down some copies for you. I don't really know how that works, but along those lines, I would say that if you have any old D&D books you're getting rid of, donate them to a local library, specifically so new players can get their hands on them. If you do want to spend a little money, but you don't want to commit a full $150, you don't have to buy any of the core rulebooks to start playing D&D. Check out one of the starter sets instead. Those usually have some basic rules in them, as well as some pre-generated characters, and they include an adventure. These starter sets are a fantastic way to dip your toes into the game, but also even once you've got your campaign going, you don't need to spend another dime on any other books, because everything is out there for free, or most things are. Yes, it is nice to have the monster manual. I'm definitely glad I have my copy, but if you have the monsters from a starter set, or even just the monsters from the online PDF, you're good. And it's also worth noting that there are lots of other free resources out there. Lots of people put up their monsters for free on Reddit, and while I'm sure there's a lot of AI slop up there, just like there is in most places, the D&D community has been really good about cracking down on that stuff. So if you go to a homebrew D&D Reddit page, you'll find the material that people really like that's made for free and available for anybody. And you also have creators like Pointy Hat, who is a fellow dungeon tuber, and every video he makes, he puts out a new subclass, or a new monster, or a brand new adventure, all of it for free. If you just check out the links in his videos, you will genuinely have enough material to run several campaigns. And he's not the only one who does that kind of thing. There are lots of creators out there who put their stuff out there for free. And a lot of them also have material you can go and purchase, and you might feel more comfortable spending money on a small creator rather than buying the big books or even the starter set from the big company. If you want to check out the books later on, I don't know, try your local library or pick up a copy at your friendly local gaming store if you want to spend the money, but you'd be surprised how little you need those 3 books if you just lean on the community a little bit. Of course, when you're sitting down at the table, sure, you've got the rules that you found for free, maybe you've got a starter set, but you still need everything else at the table, right? You need maps and minis, right? Well, sure, maybe, but you could just draw the maps yourself at the table. Honestly, in the old days of the hobby, they would just draw their maps on graph paper and describe where they were on the map. If you want to get a full-sized map in front of everybody, you don't need to spend any money on that at all. Just grab some sheets of paper, put them down on the table, and put your characters down. You can get big pieces of butcher paper and put those down and draw a map on that. And if you want to spend a little bit of money, buy yourself one of these battle mats. It comes with a grid printed on it, and you can draw on it with some wet erase markers and draw your whole elaborate map, and then when you're done, just grab a wet paper towel and erase the map. I do strongly encourage you erase the map every time and just redraw the map next week if you're going back into the same dungeon, because otherwise the lines are going to sit and stain the mat. But I've had my mat since college. It's been almost 20 years. They don't really go bad or expire in any way. It's an extremely useful resource, and it's only a little bit of money for something you will use for literally decades. But you still need to figure out what sort of map you need to draw for your players, right? You need some sort of dungeon, some environment to present to your players, which probably means you need some sort of official adventure, right? Or you need some vast resource of maps, like an entire book's worth of maps. How are you going to get your hands on some quality maps designed by some of the best designers in the industry completely for free?
Shiver me timbers.
No, I was actually going to say that you can go online and find a whole bunch of websites where people just post their dungeon maps completely for free. I don't even mean on Reddit here. That is probably true, but I mean, if you Google dungeon a day, you will find some creators who have been posting dungeons to their blogs for years, every single day. Even if they don't currently still upload very regularly, you'll go back and find vast archives that last more than a decade in many cases. Dyson Logos is a cartographer who has drawn official maps for official D&D products. He has such an iconic style that you will instantly recognize it as one of the most popular map styles from the past 10 years if you've cracked open any of the recent D&D adventures, which I realize many of you have not, given your, the target audience for this video is people who haven't, but if you have seen his maps. And once again, he has so many maps that are available completely for free. So if you're playing virtually, you can just drag them into your virtual tabletop and present them to your players. Or print them out and bring them to your game, copy them onto your battle mat, or print them out in a larger size and show them to your players that way. But it is such a valuable resource, and it is there for you specifically so you don't have to spend money on it. When all you need is a map, you can literally find thousands of them online without paying a single dime. And if you like the maps you're seeing, it's also very likely that the creator you like has other resources you can spend some money on to get even more maps. Or they might have just a Patreon or a Ko-fi page that you can use to support them a little bit to thank them for putting out a resource they provide you for free. But okay, if you're playing with maps and miniatures, surely you need really nice miniatures, right? And sure, minis are great to have. I have a fantastic collection of minis. It's pretty modest compared to a lot of other people, but I've got some minis I'm really proud of. I've got some metal minis, which I don't think anybody even makes anymore. And I've got a lot of really fantastic plastic minis. There are even more out there. There are some that I've had my eye on for a long time that I want to buy. And I really enjoy having a miniatures collection, and I do want to try painting more minis in the future at some point when I have the time and space to do that. But the point is, I have this full library of minis that I bring to my games to bring my game to life at the table. But also, When I first started running my own games, I didn't have that same huge collection of minis, and we still had a lot of fun. In my earliest games, I used to bring army men to the table. It was actually pretty funny because I did have a few metal miniatures that were meant to represent the heroes, and then I had the army men to use as goblins, and the army men towered above the standard size for your general miniatures. So it didn't really do a good job of capturing the scale of these monsters, but it did do exactly what they needed to do. It let my players know where the bad guys were, and I could use the different weapons held by the different army men to establish which enemies were frontline fighters, and which ones were snipers shooting from the back, and which ones were spellcasters lobbing spells at the party like grenades. I know there are a lot of people out there who use Lego figures or poker chips or candy. That's a particularly fun approach because when the heroes kill a bad guy, they get to eat the candy. And if you want to spend a little bit of money, you don't even have to spend that much. You don't need plastic miniatures even. Once again, you can find places online where you can purchase designs for paper minis. You can print them out, cut them out, turn them into little standees at your table. Or you can print out stickers that have simple icons on them, like daggers or skulls to represent whatever you want them to represent. They could represent undead for the skull or a barbarian. It's up to you. But then you can stick those stickers onto like poker chips or buttons or whatever. And there's a lot of information out there for how to actually do that. And there are plenty of people out there who never even use maps or minis at all. Like, I've been playing with my group in person for about a year. I barely ever busted out my map because most of the time the battle happens pretty quickly, or I just don't have a dungeon that has that much detail in it. Like, I don't need a map because I can just kind of generally approximate by putting the players on top of a book or something like that. And I do want to use maps more in that group. I think my players would enjoy seeing where they are on the battlefield. It would actually make things a little bit easier for them to understand. But some of them are completely fine without it. They have no problem just following along with my verbal descriptions. You may never need maps or minis. It depends a lot on your play style and the style of your group. So it's definitely not something you should put a lot of money into, at least until you know for sure that it really will be part of your style. If you want to run a tactical game, you want to see what it feels like, then start with just a basic mock-up. Start with Funko Pops or Pogs or whatever. Use those as the miniatures, and for the map, just flip over some wrapping paper and draw on the back of that. That will work completely fine. And then, if you thought it was helpful for everyone to see the game represented in a physical space, consider looking up some miniatures. But of course, if there's something that you know you need for your game, it's dice. After all, you can't play D&D without dice, right? But dice can get a little bit expensive, and while I love spending money on dice, and I absolutely will do so very happily, particularly with products from companies that maybe sponsor this video from time to time, like maybe sponsoring this video, we'll talk about that more later, but you don't need to spend that much money to get good dice. Don't let them hear that I said that. Actually, they're cheap and affordable, so they don't mind that I say that, right? I'm walking a real tightrope with this video, I'm aware of that. But the point is, if you want to get dice, you can do that for not a lot of money. In fact, if you buy one of those starter sets I mentioned earlier, they come with a set of dice. But you can also just go to a gaming store or go to Target, I think, and just buy a set of dice for not that much money. And it'll have all the standard set of 7 dice that you need for most games. And you can just pass the dice around the table when people need to roll. I've done that before, where I was traveling and visiting my sister and her husband, and we met with her husband's family, and all the siblings played D&D together. Most of them had never played, and I wasn't prepared to run a game, so I ran out to a gaming store, and I bought a set of dice, and we just passed the dice around the table like you would with any board game. Most players are actually used to that. And even that is still optional, because you can just find some dice apps online that are completely free. You can literally just Google the dice you want to roll, like 2d20s, and Google will roll the dice for you. I'm never going to tell people you shouldn't buy cool dice if you want to. Lord knows, I have bought some incredible looking sets of dice that I did not need. You really don't need more dice, you like dice. But that's because this is a hobby, and you can always spend more money on a hobby. But dice don't expire. You don't need to buy new dice unless you actually lose a die. So every other set you buy after your first set of dice is just a little bit of extra fun. It's just a way to spend a little money on yourself because you want to. I still have my first set of dice. They're right here in this box, and I still roll with them in... I still have my first set of dice. They're in this box. I roll with them in almost every game. I have lots of other sets of dice that I purchased because I bought them for a specific character, but I don't play that character anymore, so I never use them anymore. Or maybe I got a set of dice as part of a Kickstarter, and I didn't really need them at that moment, so I just put them in my dice bag, and they've mostly remained unused ever since. Again, if you like to collect dice, I'm not going to stop you. It's fun. But you definitely don't need to buy any dice to play this game, and certainly not more than one set. If you're going to start spending money on dice, this is the first thing I would spend money on once you have whatever rules you need. I think you need dice more than you need a map, for example. But again, if you're happy using a phone app to roll your dice, that works too. Now, here's the thing. As I just alluded to a minute ago, this video is sponsored, and I realize that's going to be a very awkward transition to make. After all, I spent this entire video so far talking about how you don't need to spend money on this hobby, and now I'm about to ask you to spend money on this hobby? How is that supposed to make sense? Well, truly, I don't know how I'm supposed to make that transition work, so you know what? I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to let somebody else read the ad, and hopefully that helps solve the cognitive dissonance. So let's cut away.
Winnie the Pooh, thank you so much for inviting me to play D&D. I've always wanted to play, but nobody's ever asked me.
No problem, Velveteen Rabbit. It's a fun game. You're gonna love it.
But I don't have any dice. My favorite dungeon tuber promised me that I wouldn't need dice for my first time playing D&D.
That's okay. I'm sure his heart was in the right place, even though that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You could borrow mine. I have lots of dice. I love dice.
Wow, these dice are incredible. Where'd you get them?
Why, I'll get my dice from Only Crits. Only Crits is a fantastic dice company that we've been working with for a long time, and they have some truly wonderful dice sets available. They've got beautiful sharp-edged dice, gorgeous resin dice, gemstone dice that look like precious stones, and metal dice with all sorts of incredible colors and patterns. And of course, they've got the fantastic Little Friends dice sets, where each die contains a cute little duck or dog or a panda. Or they might have something inside that better matches your character, like a compass, or a gear, or a sailboat.
Wow, that's so many cool options. But what if I can't decide which dice to get?
Well, that's alright. You could purchase the Only Crits mystery box. You'll get a random set of dice from the incredible collection of Only Crits sets. And you can sign up for the monthly service and get a new set of dice every month, and it'll be 40% cheaper just for signing up for the monthly option. And the first time you sign up, you'll get a free 5th edition adventure. And if you visit onlycrits.com/supergeekmike and use the promo code SUPERGEEK at checkout, you'll be able to save 20% off your order. That's a really fantastic deal, it is.
That is a fantastic deal. Thank you, Winnie the Pooh. You're so wonderful.
Hey guys, can I play? Hey, you're not public domain yet.
Yeah, our game is only for public domain characters.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
Fuck off.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
Fuck off.
Once again, that's onlycrits.com/supergeekmike and use the promo code SUPERGEEK for 20% off your order. Thank you so much to Only Crits for sponsoring this video. Cheerio! Now, everything I've talked about here today has been centered on typical standard D&D, but not everybody plays D&D. There are lots of other games out there, especially indie games, that are a little bit harder to track down for free online or at a local library. If you want to play Moorpark or Mothership, there's a chance you're going to be able to find them at your local gaming store. The store in my area does carry those games, and maybe the store in your area does as well. But if you want a more obscure game like Orbital Blues, or even just a smaller print run game like Shadow Dark, you're probably going to need to find it online.
Find it online. I get you.
No, I really do mean find it online and buy it. First of all, even if you order the print edition online, these games are always less expensive than D&D. Even something like Daggerheart, a huge, big, thick book that comes with a full set of cards, is still pretty close in price to just one of the core rulebooks of D&D. But unlike D&D, the Daggerheart core rulebook comes with everything you need to play and run the game in one volume, rather than split into 3 discrete books. So it's a little bit kinder on your wallet. But also, you don't need to purchase the physical book in order to play a lot of these games, because you can usually just buy the PDF, and it's going to be cheaper. But if you're willing to buy the physical book, there's usually a deal online where they'll also give you access to the PDF. You get the PDF just for buying the physical book. So even other games that have multiple books, like something like Draw Steel, still gives you access to the PDFs, so you're getting more value than you would if you bought a D&D book. Because that's what most publishers do. They give you a PDF when you buy the physical book, and D&D doesn't. It's kind of crazy that Wizards of the Coast is still so insistent that they don't sell PDFs. But okay, sure, when we're talking about indie games, I imagine most people would agree that you should spend money on the game if you're going to play it, or even if you're going to read it, because indie designers need a little bit more financial support. But what about games that are doing a lot better? Games that are still published by decent-sized companies? Like, what if you want to play Pathfinder, but you don't want to drop a bunch of money on all the books just yet?
Hop aboard a ship and see what you can find.
Right, so you can go online to find the Archives of Nethys. That's definitely what we're talking about right now. It is a website that has all the rules for Pathfinder on it completely for free. And unlike something like the D&D rules, which are uploaded as a basic PDF, the Archives of Nethys is actually a website that you can navigate around, closer to something like D&D Beyond. But this actually brings me to my last category of things I want to talk about. Things that you are sort of expected to spend money on when you get into the hobby. D&D Beyond. It's a relatively recent resource, but boy oh boy, it has institutional capture up the wazoo. If you're not familiar, D&D Beyond is the official online character builder and general resource for all things D&D these days. You can build your characters, you can create campaigns and assign characters to campaigns. GMs can share information with their players through those campaigns, so if you want to give your players access to the same books you've purchased through the website, like player resources or adventures, you can manage all that through the campaigns. The character builder guides you on how to level up your character. It makes building your character a lot easier. You don't have to go through all the steps in the book. It just tells you what you need to do with each level up. And you can download the app and access the books on your phone. And I do that all the time. I'll frequently be brainstorming my next adventure while I'm running around, running errands, or on a walk. And it's nice to be able to pull out my phone and search in the app for a certain kind of monster and just be able to view the stat block. I use it when I'm running games. I just have my phone open and I'll open up the stat block for the monster I'm using. It's really helpful. It is genuinely a very helpful resource. That being said, even though D&D Beyond has only been around for less than 10 years, it has really embedded itself in the culture of this hobby. There's a lot of pressure in the community in general to use D&D Beyond. It's what most players are going to expect you to use when you run a game, and most other players will be surprised if you don't use it to make your character and to run your character at the table. It's kind of become invaluable. And personally, as much as I like D&D Beyond, that is starting to frustrate me. And listen, there are lots of very legitimate reasons to have concerns about the entire community moving on to D&D Beyond, like how it forces your players to view player material as legitimate or illegitimate, determined based on whether it's on this website or not. There are a lot of really fantastic third-party supplements that your players just might not be interested in unless you share them through the website, through D&D Beyond. And likewise, your players will assume that anything they find in any of the books you have access to them on D&D Beyond, that it's all fair game, whether or not that's actually true. Mike Shea has talked about this problem a lot on his channel. I think there are some legitimate concerns about the institutional capture D&D Beyond has on so many groups. But the bigger issue that I've been having in my games is that D&D Beyond does not actually teach players how to play their characters. When they don't write anything down on their character sheet themselves and everything auto-populates every time they level up, and they only have to make one single choice or maybe choose a couple spells, but they're not really seeing all the other things they get with each level that they don't even have to think about, then they don't really know what sorts of abilities and powers they have access to. They don't know that they're getting other powers as they level up because they wouldn't even think to ask that question. So they don't really know how their characters work. I've hit the point where the next time I run a campaign for my in-person group, I'm probably not going to allow them to use D&D Beyond. I'm going to insist they use physical character sheets, even if we're using D&D, because I no longer feel that D&D Beyond is a terribly effective teaching tool. It is a nice digital resource. It's very useful in that way. But if your only interaction with the rules comes when you choose your subclass, and then you never think about anything else, and every time you level up you just pick a spell or two, and then that's it, and you're not looking at the other things you get, then you're not learning about all the things that you have, and you don't know all the things your character can do. And honestly, I could spend a lot more time on this. I probably will make a whole other video about this problem. But my other big problem with D&D Beyond, and the one that I think is the most relevant to today's topic, is the fact that when you do purchase a book through that website, you don't own it. You're not getting a PDF you can download. You're getting the ability to access this book on your phone or on your computer, but they can still change the book. They can take things out or sub things out for something else, and I'm sure they could revoke access if they wanted, and you'll definitely lose access if the site ever shuts down. When it crashes, you lose access to your stuff. And that sucks because having a PDF of your books is really useful when you're prepping your game, and while I do appreciate being able to access my books through the website, it's very valuable, and I love all the formatting that goes into them, I also really would love to be able to download them and put them on my Kindle or whatever. But unfortunately, if you want a PDF of the official core rulebooks for the current edition of the game, there's no way to get them.
Well, there is one way.
Yeah, okay, so we've been dancing around it. There are absolutely ways to get certain resources for free on the internet. I almost never use them, and I don't think you should either. Unless you want to. I don't really care. I personally never use the material of an independent creator or a small game studio without paying for it. I think that is really disrespectful to them, especially because that material is usually out there for pretty affordable prices, and I know from experience just how big a difference a little bit of money can make for an independent creator. If you purchase the PDF for a book that you and your friends are going to use, I don't think it's at all a problem to share that PDF among your gaming group. That's completely fine. But when you put it online for strangers, that's a line that I don't cross. But I also know I'm not going to be able to put that genie back in the bottle. All I can do is refrain from using it myself. I also know that some people choose to pirate because they just can't afford to support the creators they really would like to, and I completely understand that. As I hope I've made my point already, times are tough. But I don't take that tactic, I don't pirate, because I know myself well enough to know that if I choose to get a product without paying for it, with the promise to myself, even if not to them, that someday I'll go back and pay for it later down the road. When I can afford it, I will make it up for them. Well, if I already have the product, I don't have anything that's going to remind me that I haven't gone back and paid for it yet. If I want to support a creator, I'm not going to download the PDF for free, because if I do, I'll forget I have to go back and pay for it when I'm ready to. Or when I finally am able to afford to buy a book, I'll say, well, I could go back and buy that PDF that I already downloaded for free, but you know what else I could do is I could download a new one. I could buy a new one rather, and support that creator. And I'm sure the other creator wouldn't mind. They don't know that I downloaded something that they put out there, that they didn't see that I pirated something, so I'll come back to them another time. Now, you may not have that problem that I do. I personally feel like when I'm in a situation where I download somebody's work for free, and I intend to go back and pay for it later, I often didn't do that. I either didn't remember that I hadn't done it before, or I would just deprioritize it because I already had the material I needed and I didn't need to go back and pay them for access for the stuff I already had. So it would just fall further and further down the priority list. It's why I don't do it anymore, because I know myself well enough to know that that is not a healthy way for me to engage with other people's work. If you don't have that same problem, then do your thing. I can't say go for it. I'm not going to use my channel to endorse piracy, but I'm just going to say that I understand the logic. And as long as you're keeping the promises that you're making to make it make sense and make it feel ethical, as long as you're sticking to them in a way that I don't feel like I could, then it is none of my business. I'll put it that way. That's all I can feel comfortable saying. But I know that I need to avoid downloading things for free, or I'm never going to go back and pay for them because I'll get distracted, I'll forget, I'll deprioritize it. And that's why I haven't pirated anything in like 5 years. Because I wasn't doing what I said I would do. I wasn't going back and supporting the creators when I was able to, for lots of reasons. None of them valid, but all of them happened every single time. So I removed that option for myself. And I also chose my words very carefully there. I made sure to say that if there's work that I downloaded, I would go back and pay for it. Not if it's work that I liked or a creator that I liked. Because I'm not a big fan of justifying piracy by saying that the company that owns the product is an evil soulless corporation, or the creator is a bad person, so download their stuff for free. Like, I'm all in favor of not spending money on the creators or companies you don't support. That makes perfect sense. But I get very wary about justifying piracy based on whether or not you're stealing from creators you don't like. Like, again, not many people are going to jump to Wizards of the Coast's defense if you pirate the Dungeon Master's Guide. They're a huge corporation. It's a victimless crime. It's like shoplifting at Walmart. Who cares? But I know some people justify their piracy by basically saying that they're stealing from bad people, creators who don't deserve your money. Like if, I don't know, hypothetically there was a new television adaptation coming later this year based on a book series created by an extremely terrible person, you might see people saying, well, I'm going to watch it, but I'm not going to pay to watch it. I'll pirate it, and that makes it okay. But like, you can also just not give them your time and attention as well. Like, yes, don't give them your money, all for that. But why are you giving them your time and attention? If you so fundamentally disagree with what this creator would do with their money, if you don't want to support them in any way, then why are you wasting your time with them? There are so many other things out there that are so much more deserving of your limited time on this planet. And again, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to convince anybody else of the best way to approach this topic. It's a complicated discussion, I get that. So I'm just letting you know where I stand, because I'm not really interested in litigating exceptions or adjudicating hypotheticals in the comments. I imagine I'm going to get some comments from people asking, well, what about this? Wouldn't this be okay? Well, what about this? How do you feel about this? And I assume what they're doing is they're looking for permission to do what they already want to do. They want to know that I personally would approve of the way they consume art. But I'm not here to judge anybody. I'll judge you if you watch the Harry Potter show. Like, if you tell me that, okay, like, seems like you just have a humiliation fetish at this point. But I don't care whether or not you pirated it. I care about whether we let our nostalgia for this franchise obscure the role that this creator plays in harming trans people. It's not about just giving her financial support. It's about the fact that if you can't give up watching a, frankly, mediocre-looking television show to stand in solidarity with trans people, then it makes me wonder how valuable an ally you'll be. When you can't even give up a TV show, how are you going to be expected to actually stand up when people ask something real from you? If you just want to talk about how you're going to justify it, I really don't care about that. For lots of reasons. Because again, stepping out of just that specific example, in general, I don't really care what you do. You know, in the Harry Potter situation, I don't care if you pirated it or not. It's about the harm being done by that creator, and about how anyone who still publicly interacts with that franchise in a meaningful way makes trans people feel unsafe around them. And the point is, I don't care what you do, but just do with that information what you will. But again, with that one exception, generally speaking, I'm not talking about what you should or shouldn't do, what you should or shouldn't pirate, because these are not standards that I hold most other people to. they're standards I hold for myself. The approach that I found works best for me is just to never pirate anything. This is my approach. If you think it makes sense, you're welcome to adopt it. I think it might work for you, it worked well for me, but if it doesn't, cool, I'm not calling anybody out. Because again, I know that there are people who wish they could pay for things, but they can't. I get it. You are not imagining that everything costs so much more now. Turns out, putting tariffs on a whole bunch of goods without actually making sure we have a manufacturing system in place to make them ourselves is bad for the economy. Taking millions of people off of Medicaid is bad for the economy. Using that money to pay a secret police to deport innocent people so there are less workers in the country and fewer people spending money in the country either because they're hiding in their homes or they were literally dragged away in chains and put in detention or deported, that's obviously awful and evil and immoral and wicked. But also, not the most important thing, but it is also true that it's bad for the economy. When the tariffs and the loss of labor forces a business to close down, that's also bad for the economy. And of course, starting a war in the Middle East for absolutely no fucking reason is bad for the economy when we now have to pay $65 for a tank of fucking gas. But this is also frustrating because we're all doing worse and none of it just happened. It's someone's fault. And other people saw it coming and tried to warn the voters that this was the inevitable fallout of electing this one guy and his idiot piece of shit friends. And it's just so frustrating to be ignored for that. And then to see people worrying about the things that are happening and going, oh no, this seems bad. And it's everything that you warned them was going to come to pass. Like, oh, what's that? The world's most obvious liar promised he wasn't going to start any more wars? He was lying. What's that? The racist piece of shit said they were only going to go after the immigrants who were murderers and sex criminals and gang members and they weren't going to deport anybody else? He was lying. What's that? The terrible businessman who went bankrupt a bunch of times, including bankrupting a casino, said tariffs are going to make our country richer? Well, he was either lying or stupid. I don't know which. Maybe both. But either way, it was very obviously untrue to anybody who was paying any attention. And in the parade of human rights violations we have to deal with every single fucking day, which would absolutely be bad enough, but in addition to that, everything's also getting so much more expensive so much more quickly as a direct result of the president's policies, which everybody warned him against, and he did it anyway because he's an arrogant, idiot, piece of shit pedophile.
Damn, and I thought I was salty.
But the nice thing is we don't actually have to spend money on this hobby if we don't want to. And if you're not sure if there's something out there that you might want to purchase, you can look up reviews from influencers who hopefully you generally agree with, and you can see what they think of a product. Which is why I think it is so important for people to review these products and offer advice for whether or not gamers should pick them up themselves. That's why my next video is going to be a review for the first adventure product for 5.5, Dragon Delves, which I know came out like more than 8 months ago, but I'm just getting to it now. And I'm especially excited to talk about it this year because this year I'm talking all about episodic campaigns, and this book is a collection of episodic dragon-themed adventures. So it's the perfect opportunity to see if this book understands all the things that I think are so important to running an episodic campaign. And I can hopefully answer the question of whether you should buy the book or just skip it.
Or do a secret third thing.
No. Thank you so much for watching. I know whenever I talk about politics, I get people commenting, why do you hate all Trump voters? I don't hate all Trump voters. I'm very mad at all Trump voters, but I don't hate all of them. I hate some of them, but not all of them. And actually, case in point, before I recorded this video, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, my cousin actually reached out to me on Instagram and just sent me a message that said, you were right. And we had a phone call about it. He had blocked me last year after I'd asked him, like, what policies do you actually like of his? And then he reached out to me this year and he's like, yeah, I really don't like all these wars. He still said some stuff on the call that made me a little frustrated. Like when he was like, oh, I was looking at this one guy, who's really been digging into the truth about Trump. And, he started by looking into the vaccines and I was like, oh boy, we don't have time to get into this today. But I liked that my cousin was like, I don't think we should be killing Middle Easterners for no reason. I was like, let's pursue that line of questioning. I don't like some of the ways he's talking about other topics that are making me a little curious, but this is a good first step. He was also very upset about the Epstein stuff, which, like, again, absolutely, let's foster this feeling. So I know there are people out there who are like getting very frustrated, even though they voted for Trump. My cousin did not vote, which, okay, why did you fucking block me? If you didn't vote at all, like, who cares? But he was still a supporter, and he literally said, how did he phrase it? He said, I feel like I just put down the Kool-Aid and walked out of Jonestown. And because he's seeing all his friends who are still in that camp. I was like, man, I'm very happy that you're sort of coming out of that. I want to encourage it to move in a more productive direction towards community action or mutual aid or things like that. But right now, the first step is just encouraging him to, like, yes, you're not going crazy. This is bad, and it doesn't matter whether you supported it or not. It is okay to say this is wrong. I think that we still need to remember who ignored those signs and try to encourage them to get into the proper spaces where they can actually hear what's really going on. But you're not going to get everybody into that camp because people are so locked into their information bubbles. But I did see a lot of fracturing during this whole Iran thing, and I think, unfortunately, he has presented a case that said, never mind, I knew what I was doing, and that's wrong and stupid. But it's going to give some people the excuse to jump back on ship. But there was a minute there where it was really looking bad for his base, and some people are still mad at him, and I that is encouraging. It really does seem like some people are starting to realize, wait a minute, the Emperor has no clothes. This sucks. I don't like seeing his swing and wang floating around. I hate that analogy for lots of reasons in this particular case, because I don't like that imagery associated with that guy. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is that hopefully you found it useful, talking about D&D and how you don't have to spend money on it, and try to make sure this was accessible for both GMs and players. The next video is definitely going to be very GM-centric, so if you're interested in watching that, make sure you subscribe. And there should be a Patreon live stream coming soon. Hope Editing Mike has figured out the information, and it's right up here. Really hoping that's true. And other than that, things are good. Things are, better than the last time where a ceiling fan blade landed next to my baby's head. Nothing major like that. We are all sick. The baby did get everyone sick, but that's just, like, again, he had his birthday party at, like, a kid's fun play area. He was in a ball pit. Now we're all sick. Gee, I wonder how that happened. If you want to watch a recent video that I did that was all about playing a silly character from a third-party resource, if you want to spend money on those kinds of things instead of the official books, check that video out right here. It's all about playing goose-themed characters and running goose-themed monsters. Really fun product, really fun video. Check that one out right here. Stay tuned for the next video soon, and until next time, play fair and have fun.